Justin Ashby with Southern Crown Partners out of Charleston, South Carolina, representing one of the largest beer wholesalers in the Southeast.
Ryan Moses, Best Brands in Nashville, Tennessee. We are one of the largest wine, beer, and spirits distributors in the state, as well as the largest hemp distributor in the state.
Our topic is distributor agreements are like marriages and how to diligence your partner. I ran with that whole metaphor between dating and marriages. It begins with the romance, the I love you, so the selecting the partners, and then it moves to the marriage license, till death do us part, the contracts. And then hot topic is always the prenups. You know, if there has to be a separation agreement, then the marriage laws, which is the regulatory structure in different states. And marriage laws, just like alcohol and cannabis laws, are going to be different state by state. One that I understand is a very hot topic, certainly has been in the alcohol business, is the fidelity versus the open marriage, and that is direct shipping to retailers and consumers. Ultimately, you know, we try to work together, achieve a marital bliss, and have long-term relationships that go on forever with compromise and working together as marriages have to have happen.
If you're a brand looking to find a route to market, you're going to be hard-pressed to find a better route to market. We are in every store in our market at least once a week, often 2-3 times a week, with large sales forces, large delivery forces, and we run a very extremely capital-intensive business. When you want to have that 50 case, 100 case impactful display at a store, you really have to have a local partner to help you do it. As we're talking about these marriages, that means there's got to be a piece of the margin pie for everyone to be able to be successful with. And
everyone is quick to go to this direct to consumer because it's kind of that quick grab, and that's that quick opportunity to have that direct interaction with the consumer. But the problem is, I think there's a legislative risk of what will happen in every state. So I think if you do that as your business model, you need to be prepared for that to be closed across the board. And from the legislative body, we're the best in class from tax collection. And then on the finance pieces, I think in order for this to be healthy for everyone's side, like everyone has to be making money in this experience.
All juicy topics have history. The alcohol industry has a history in the way that things have been going for the last 100 years and the way that it was brought to the masses. Because if you talk to an energy drink company, what those contracts and the choices that they have to distribute their products is very different than if you're talking to a whiskey company in Tennessee. Since there is no rule set in most states, very clearly outlining out and solving some of these things, you have to kind of go with which partners will work with you. And the alcohol partners are the ones that are embracing this category.
you know, it's important that you find a partner on really both sides of this marriage that really sort of embraces what both of you were looking for. It's important that from the brand side, you have a brand that fits and that resonates, and you could both come to a common agreement about what success looks like. You might have a fantastic liquid, but maybe it has a really complex flavor with unique cannabinoids in it that's only going to appeal to a very small amount of folks. But what you really have to make sure is that when you sit down at the table with your partner and you're finding the distributor that's going to help you with that, you have to be realistic about what that volume is going to look like. If you've got something that could appeal to the masses, the sky's the limit. But if you've got something that's unique and niche, I think it's really important that you're both open and communicative with each other about what that's going to look like.
Like as an operator and as an execution person, I really believe in focus. The way that I want the world to be, most distributors aren't taking 3 or 4 brands. And so I want them to take 3 or 4 brands so that they can focus on building more time and attention on mine, because if they take 3 or 4 THC brands, they could have hundreds of spirits SKUs and products. And so at the end of the day, if you're talking to a distributor that has $300 million of revenue in a year, and we're talking about this new category that's going to be less than 1% of their revenue, and you're going to be one of 4 brands in that category, one of 10 brands, one of 15 brands, how do you stand out? How do you get the attention of that sales team? And so what I want is focus and attention as much as possible for us. What I want also is to build the category, and to build the category cooperatively with people who are building alongside us and help push the category forward. Because if somebody has a bad experience with a bad product, it hurts all of us. What I want from a wholesaler is co-investment, and a lot of them are. What I've noticed is that some are willing to put it in writing, some aren't. How you communicate and how you get along and how you can start that communication, that relationship is really important, because similar to relationships, things are going to change. You guys are going to have a miscommunication. Something's going to go wrong. And can you have an honest conversation about it? And sometimes can you agree to disagree? In terms of learning with the distributor in a relationship is thinking about where are they, the distributor, in their journey of THC beverages. Are you the first THC beverage to launch? Because we've done that. We've been the absolute first brand to launch with a distributor. And that was very different than being the 5th. Are they launching 10 brands in 3 months? Because that's very different than launching 3 in 6. Those things are things you have to be aware of, and you have to to really have a conversation as much as possible up front to do that and ask those questions. And don't feel like a bad person for asking those questions. The wholesaler told me, he said, I like how you're interviewing me as much as I'm interviewing you.
There you go.
But at the end of the day, my company is my baby. If you're going to help take care of my baby, we've got to be on the same page.
Hemp companies, especially some of these newer guys, get caught up in the, I want to be one of 4 or one of 10 within your portfolio. I want to be a smaller piece. And yes, that is real. But on the flip of that is I represent 3,500 brands and I have a 60% market share in the bourbon category. That doesn't prevent me from being successful with the next bourbon that comes out. If anything, I would argue I'm going to be more successful because of my experience.
I think you have to be able to answer yourself the question of how am I going to be successful with my partner? And if you don't have a very clear, this is what I know I need to do, then you're definitely starting off on the wrong foot. How are they aligned to sell the 100th THC SKU that they're going to sell? I've had a wholesaler tell me, we're out of sales reps, so we're having the wine people sell the THC products. Some people could be okay with that. Other people won't. And you just have to decide, like, are you okay with, is that the setup that you're looking for your brand?
Moving on to the I do stage, and asking somebody to marry you and you're going to sign a contract or marriage contract, are the contractual agreements critical to the success of the supplier-distributor relationship? Justin, what provisions are fundamental to good contracts?
You sign the contract, you said I do, and you kind of put it in the drawer until it's time to say I don't. When you think about that and what those provisions sort of need to be, I think there's a couple that would be paramount to me. One is that you're talking about what your mutual annual plans look like. We want this to be a lifetime relationship. It has to be mutual, right? We're going to have to give on some things. The brand's going to have to give on some things. We're going to have to find that common middle ground. So I love to see the word mutual in contracts. We ought to be able to come to that common ground on what that looks like. And then when it does come time to the I don't, we have to find some common ground in this provision, especially when we're at this stage of negotiation, to say, we've invested tons and tons of money in, as I mentioned earlier, a very resource-intensive business to help you build a brand. We've loved your baby just like it was our baby through all these years. So we got to make sure that termination provision, especially in the early stages of the contract, is going to reflect that commitment that we've had over the years. And so if we're going to sit down at the table and say, hey, we can leave at any time and there's no provision, it's probably not a brand that we're going to want to entertain a conversation with.
When you're a supplier versus a distributor, your interests aren't always 100% aligned.
I think the distribution agreement that you're doing with a smaller distributor and kind of going and it's going to crawl before you walk kind of stage, and that works and that's the place. I think that agreement is different than the agreement you would get with myself or the agreement you're going to get with Justin in terms of how we're approaching the brand, because we're calling on that network. We're calling convenience stores. We're calling on the whatever might be in our network. So we're calling on those. So that's a different scenario. I give an example of like Topo Chico. We were selling Topo Chico before Coca-Cola bought it. Well, guess what? They eventually want to go to Coca-Cola network, and now we're actually still carrying it as well on top of that. But I'm just saying, like, that's a win-win for everyone. They've now moved to Coca-Cola over a 3-year period in the grocery chain. We still carry all the independents. We carry all the pieces. We've actually expanded within Coke. But I mean, if something like that is happening, it's a win for everyone. So we've learned, I guess, the hard way in terms of understanding who the emulsification producer is and kind of what your processes are. So maybe not have to have that certification, but that definitely will go into our questions as we start talking with the brand in terms of understanding that process. Because from our reputational risk piece of it as well, we want to make sure if we're coming to the market with a product, all our consumers, our retailers know we've vetted that product.
So in Georgia, we have a clear regulatory framework. In South Carolina, we have an attorney general opinion that says, yeah, these are legal, and that's kind of the end of it. So we've been sort of acting as the regulator, I guess, in that sense as well, to say, hey, let's make sure that we're comfortable putting a cap of X milligrams on a beverage. At the end of the day, we all have a responsibility and a social responsibility to treat these products as such. And I want these products to be around for the next 100 years. I don't want to see them go away. I don't want to see a couple bad actors in the space sort of ruin it for everyone. And so in a lot of ways, in places where we don't have that regulation, I really like what you said. Like, we've had to step in and sort of become the regulator.
When you think about how do I get to $1 billion of revenue as a brand, I don't see $1 billion of revenue economically happening on D2C. But I do think that from a business perspective, I want to use D2C to build my awareness, to build my brand, to make me smarter, and to be smarter so that I can do better with my wholesale partner.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is like, I think right now it's that stepping stone to get you kind of have better analytics to go in a 3-tier system. Mm-hmm. But if you're basing your model on that, especially when you go into markets where maybe you already are in a D2C kind of space, and now your price point online with the subscription or whatever it is below the price point of what our retailers are, it's a non-starter.
Well, it definitely can coexist, and there's definitely ways to make the economics work for everyone.
You're selling direct to a yoga studio or something and selling them whatever 5 cases a month, we probably aren't going to call them, and we're fine with not having that.